tyrannical alien King Corvus just fucked up, and humanity was about to make him pay. Panic surged through Earth's populace as news spread of the immense Denobulan invasion force hurtling toward their planet, an armada of thousands of heavily armed warships intent on conquest. Commanded by the ruthless King Corvus himself, the alien fleet's approach set alarms blaring across humanity's defense grid. Dixon barked orders to mobilize Earth's defenses and hailed human colonies and allied worlds, urgently requesting reinforcements. Tensions spiked as the Denobulan juggernaut bore down on the solar system. It's a planet of killing weaponry casting a doom-laden shadow. The first shots of the war erupted in the asteroid belt as elite human commandos braved blistering plasma fire to launch daring raids on the enemy fleet. Many paid with their lives to beam back intel on the Denobulan's devastating armaments and energy shielding before being blasted to atoms. Grim resolve hardened the faces of Earth's defenders as they girded themselves for the fight of their lives, a battle that would decide the fate of humanity. Outmatched and outgunned, they placed their faith in daring strategies, innovative tactics, and raw human grit. The stage was set for a monumental clash that would echo through the ages, with humanity's future hanging in the balance. In the heart of Earth's orbital defense network, Commander Dixon's brow furrowed as he studied the latest tactical readouts. The Denobulan fleet's relentless approach set warning lights flashing across the command center's screens. Dixon turned to his second-in-command, the battle-hardened Major Jasmine Rios. Rios, I need you to coordinate with our planetary bases. Make sure they're ready to repel any ground invasions. Rios nodded curtly. On it, sir. She strode off, barking orders into her comms unit. Dixon hailed Captain Valdez, his most trusted field agent. The commander's holographic visage flickered to life above Valdez's wristcom. Marcus, I'm counting on you to rally our colonies. We need every ship, every soldier humanity can muster. Understood, Commander, Valdez replied, his determined eyes unwavering. I won't let you down. As Valdez signed off to begin his vital mission, Dixon turned to greet Ambassador Xanthari as she entered the command center. The tall, elegant Zephyrian exuded a calming presence, even in the midst of crisis. Philip, Xanthari began, her melodic voice tinged with urgency, our intelligence network has found a weakness in the Denobulan fleet formation. If we can exploit it, we may gain a critical advantage. Dixon leaned forward intently. I'm all ears, Neela. What have you got? The two strategists pored over the data, analyzing the Denobulan's movements and formations. Together, they devised a daring infiltration plan targeting the enemy flagship. Reeves simply nodded, his eyes glinting beneath his helmet's visor. We'll get it done, sir. As the Phantoms silently departed to prepare for their crucial assignment, Dixon turned his attention to the brave pilots gathering in the launch bays. He spotted Lieutenant Emma Vance among them, her fiery red hair a beacon amid the sea of flight suits. Vance snapped to attention as Dixon approached. Commander, Angel Squadron is prepped and ready to give the Denobulans hell. I know you'll make us proud, Lieutenant, Dixon said, clasping her shoulder. Watch your six out there. Today, we stand united against a threat that seeks to extinguish the very light of freedom in our galaxy, Dixon began, his voice ringing with conviction. The Denobulans believe they can crush us beneath their heel. They think we are weak, divided, defenseless. But they are wrong. Cheers erupted from the gathered warriors, their spirits buoyed by Dixon's indomitable drive. As the roar died down, the commander fixed them all with an unwavering focus. Now let's show these alien bastards what it means to pick a fight with Earth. In the skies above humanity's homeworld, the Denobulan armada hung like a swarm of malevolent locusts. Across the gulf of space, the two fleets faced each other in a tense standoff, a fragile calm before the storm of battle that all knew was about to break. Father, she began, choosing her words carefully, I have analyzed the humans' defensive preparations. I fear we may be underestimating their capabilities. Corvus waved a dismissive hand, not even sparing his daughter a glance. Nonsense, girl. These primates are primitives, hardly more than beasts. They will be crushed like insects beneath my boot. But father, Zara persisted, their technologies are more advanced than we... Enough, Corvus roared, his eyes flashing with anger. I will not be questioned by a mere child. Remember your place, whelp. Zara fell silent, her cheeks burning with humiliation and suppressed anger. As Corvus turned back to his displays, chuckling at his own bullying might, the seeds of doubt and resentment settled deep in the princess's heart. Unseen by any, Zara's fingers clenched into fists. Her father's arrogance and cruelty would be his undoing, she vowed silently. One way or another, the human rebels would find an unlikely ally within the Denobulan court itself. The thunderous boom of railguns signaled the start of humanity's desperate defense. As Denobulan warships pushed deeper into the solar system, Major Jack Reeves and his Phantom team initiated their high-stakes infiltration. 30 seconds to insertion, the pilot's voice crackled over the comm. The dropship's hull vibrated as it touched down on the massive Denobulan command ship. With practiced efficiency, the Phantoms breached an airlock and infiltrated the alien vessel. Moving swiftly through dimly lit corridors, they encountered no resistance. Sergeant Elena Ramirez planted explosive charges at key junctions, while others sabotaged vital systems. Charges set in engineering, Corporal Chen reported. Their warp core is going to have a real bad day. Reeves nodded. Good work. Let's... Alien shouts echoed down the hallway. A contingent of Denobulan guards rounded the corner, led by a towering figure in ornate armor. Intruders! Commander Zaxos bellowed, raising a wicked-looking plasma rifle. The corridor erupted in a storm of weapons fire. Reeves and his team took cover behind bulkheads, returning fire with deadly precision. Fall back to the extraction point, Reeves ordered. As the team retreated, Ramirez stood her ground. I'll buy you some time, sir. Her rifle spat death at the advancing Denobulans. One by one, they fell to her pinpoint accuracy. Zaxos roared in frustration, unable to break through the humans' covering fire. In Earth orbit, Lieutenant Emma Vance led her Angel Squadron in a series of lightning raids against the Denobulan fleet. The human starfighters struck like birds of prey, their advanced weapons tearing through Denobulan shields. Vance's targeting computer locked onto a cruiser's exposed reactor. The Denobulan ship vanished in a blinding fireball, taking 2 nearby destroyers with it. Nice shooting, Lieutenant, her wingman cheered. Stay focused, Vance replied. We've got more bogies inbound at 3 o'clock. Aboard the Denobulan flagship, alarms blared as systems failed across the ship. King Corvus gripped his throne, eyes wide with disbelief. What's happening? He demanded. Before his advisors could respond, a series of explosions rocked the vessel. The Phantom team's charges detonated, ripping through decks and severing power conduits. My king, we've lost engines and weapons, a panicked officer reported. Our fleet, it's in chaos. From his command center on Earth, Commander Dixon saw his opportunity. All ships, this is Dixon, he broadcast. The enemy is vulnerable. Launch full assault now. The human defense fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing. Caught off guard and with their command structure in disarray, the Denobulans struggled to mount an effective defense. A sleek Zephyrian frigate decloaked behind the alien armada. Admiral Zaros Talveris grinned fiercely as he targeted the enemy's exposed flank. Let's show these Denobulans how real warriors fight, he growled to his crew. The Zephyrian ship's energy weapons lanced out, carving through the enemy formation with surgical precision. Denobulan ships exploded or drifted powerless, unable to counter this new threat. Princess Zara stood nearby, her face a mask of conflicting emotions as she witnessed her father's plans unraveling. Outside, the battle raged on. Humanity pressed its advantage, determined to seize this moment and turn the tide of war. Yet even as they tasted the first hints of victory, Earth's defenders knew the fight was far from finished. Admiral, it's time we press our advantage. We need to hit their supply lines. Dixon opened a secure channel. Major Reeves, report to the briefing room immediately. Minutes later, Reeves stood before them, still clad in his obsidian armor. Dixon laid out the plan, detailing a series of precision strikes against Denobulan logistics ships scattered throughout the outer system. Reeves absorbed the information, his expression hidden behind his polarized visor. Consider it done, sir. As the Phantoms prepared for their mission, Lieutenant Emma Vance's voice crackled over the comms. Angel Squadron reporting in. We're locked and loaded, ready to give those alien bastards a nasty surprise. Dixon's lips curled into a grim smile. Excellent work, Lieutenant. Coordinate with the colonial pilots. I want you hitting their flanks with everything you've got. Meanwhile, Vance led her pilots in a series of lightning-fast attack runs. Human fighters danced between massive denobulan warships, their weapons finding gaps in already weakened shields. Fox 2, Vance called out, her missiles streaking towards an enemy destroyer's exposed engine nacelles. The resulting detonation tore the ship in half, secondary explosions rippling along its hull. From his command throne, King Corvus watched in mounting fury as his fleet disintegrated around him. Alarms blared, and panicked reports flooded in from all quarters. Sire, we've lost contact with our forward supply bases. Multiple breaches in our defensive line. Enemy fighters are tearing us apart. Corvus smacked his fist down, causing his advisors to flinch. Enough! All ships, form up around the vanguard. We will crush these vermin with the full might of our remaining forces. As the denobulan fleet consolidated, Commander Dixon saw his opportunity. He turned to Captain Marcus Valdez, who stood at attention nearby. Valdez's eyes gleamed with anticipation. What's the target, sir? Dixon's gaze fixed on the holographic representation of the vanguard. King Corvus himself. It's time we ended this. While Valdez assembled his strike force, Dixon and Talvaris convened with their top officers aboard the Zephyrian flagship Dauntless. The mood was tense as Dixon revealed their trump card. Murmurs of astonishment rippled through the assembled officers. Talvaris stepped forward, his voice filled with pride. With this, we can neutralize the vanguard and force Corvus into a direct confrontation. As Valdez's ships engaged the denobulan perimeter, the Dauntless moved into position. Dixon took a deep breath, then gave the order. Activate the tractor beam. Target, denobulan flagship Vanguard. The Dauntless main emitter array pulsed with ethereal energy. An invisible force reached out across space, enveloping the Vanguard in its grasp. The massive denobulan warship shuddered, then went still, trapped in an unbreakable gravitational field. Aboard the Vanguard, King Corvus roared in disbelief. What sorcery is this? All power to engines. But it was futile. The Vanguard hung motionless, a beast caught in an unseen snare. The space around Earth erupted in a maelstrom of weapons fire. Valdez's ships clashed with the denobulan armada, energy beams and missiles crisscrossing the void. The colonial captain's voice rang out over the comms, steady and determined. All units, press the attack. We've got them on the ropes. The battle raged on, but a sudden hush fell over the comms as King Corvus's voice boomed across all channels. Commander Dixon, the denobulan monarch's voice dripped with disdain. I challenge you to face me in single combat. Let us settle this conflict as true warriors. Dixon's face hardened as he considered the implications. He turned to Admiral Talvaris, whose scaled features were etched with concern. There's more at play here than just this war, Talvaris whispered, mandibles clicking softly. My people have ancient records of a malevolent entity that thrives on conflict. It may be manipulating events even now. Dixon nodded grimly. Understood. But we can't ignore this opportunity. He activated the fleet-wide comm. Lieutenant Vance, Captain Valdez, report to the bridge immediately. Minutes later, Dixon addressed his top officers. I'm accepting Corvus's challenge. If I fall, you two will lead our forces alongside Admiral Talvaris. Vance's eyes widened. Sir, you can't... That's an order, Lieutenant, Dixon cut her off, his tone brooking no argument. Dixon made his way to the airlock, each step echoing in the empty corridor. His exosuit, a relic from humanity's first forays into space combat, whirred to life as he sealed the helmet. The airlock cycled, and Dixon propelled himself into the void. Ahead, a gleaming figure emerged from the vanguard, King Corvus in his cybernetic battle form. They closed the distance, circling each other warily. Corvus struck first, a blindingly fast strike that Dixon barely deflected. The human commander countered with a barrage of kinetic rounds, most glancing off Corvus's advanced armor. "Is this the best Earth can offer?" Corvus taunted, his augmented limbs a blur of motion. The alien king reeled, momentarily stunned. Dixon pressed his advantage, raining blows on Corvus's cybernetic frame, but the Denobulan's enhanced physiology allowed him to shrug off impacts that would cripple a human. Corvus lashed out, his arm extending impossibly far to slam Dixon backward. Warning lights flashed in the commander's HUD as his suit's integrity was compromised. "You are beaten, human," Corvus snarled, advancing relentlessly. But Dixon had faced desperate odds before. He triggered his suit's emergency thrusters, spinning in a tight arc around Corvus. As the alien turned to track him, Dixon struck at the weak points he'd identified during their exchange. Piece by piece, Corvus's assumed invincibility crumbled. The Denobulan's movements became erratic, his strikes less precise. A commotion at the bridge's entrance drew her attention. Royal guards burst in, weapons raised. "Princess Zara, you're under arrest for sedition against the crown." Zara's mind raced. In a split-second decision, she dove for the nearest control panel. Her fingers flew across the interface, bypassing security protocols she'd studied for years. "What are you doing?" the lead guard demanded. Zara didn't answer. With a final command, she seized control of the Vanguard's weapon systems. Through the view screen, she saw her father preparing a killing blow against the battered human commander. "I'm sorry, father," Zara whispered. She targeted Corvus's battle form and fired. The energy blast caught Corvus completely off guard. His cybernetic enhancements sputtered and failed, leaving him vulnerable. Dixon, seizing the moment, summoned his last reserves of strength. His armored fist connected with Corvus's faceplate, shattering it completely. Across the battlefield, human and alien alike watched in stunned silence. The confrontation's outcome would reshape the course of the war. But unbeknownst to the combatants, shadowy forces continued their insidious machinations, their true goals yet to be revealed. Dixon's ragged breathing filled his helmet as he stared at the motionless form of King Corvus. The Denobulan monarch's cybernetic battlesuit sparked and sputtered, its once fearsome power now extinguished. A priority alert flashed across Dixon's HUD. "Commander, this is the Vanguard. We surrender." "Dixon, our sensors show a massive power fluctuation aboard the Vanguard. Something's happening." The bridge erupted into chaos. Officers shouted conflicting orders, while others simply stared in disbelief. Zara silenced them with a cutting gesture. "My father's arrogance has brought us to the brink of annihilation. I will not let his pride destroy our people." As Dixon was shuttled back to the Dauntless, reports flooded in from across the system. Denobulan ships stood down en masse, their crews more than eager to avoid the fate of those who had fallen to Earth's defenders. In the Dauntless's war room, Dixon found himself face-to-face with Princess Zara, her holographic image flickering slightly as she spoke. "Commander Dixon, I come before you to offer the unconditional surrender of all Denobulan forces in this system." Dixon's eyes narrowed. "Why should we trust you, Princess? Your father—" "My father," Zara interrupted, her voice sharp, "was a fool. His judgment was clouded, his decisions manipulated by forces beyond our comprehension." She took a deep breath, composing herself. "What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but I swear on my life it's the truth." Over the next hour, Zara laid bare the full extent of King Corvus's folly. She spoke of the Harbinger, an entity of terrifying power that had wormed its way into the highest echelons of Denobulan society. Through subtle influence and dark technologies, it had stoked Corvus's ego and disdain for humanity, pushing him toward this doomed invasion. As Zara's tale unfolded, the assembled human and Zephyrian leadership exchanged troubled glances. Admiral Talvaris's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep agitation. "This Harbinger," Dixon said, his voice low. "What exactly is it?" Zara's holographic form shimmered. An ancient artificial intelligence, if our records are to be believed. It seeds conflict across the galaxy, feeding on the resulting chaos. Earth was to be its latest feast. We need to know everything, he said, leaning forward. Every scrap of data, every intercepted transmission. If this harbinger is real, it's a threat to us all. Zara nodded solemnly. You'll have it all, Commander. But be warned, the deeper you dig, the more dangerous your position becomes. The harbinger has eyes and ears everywhere. As the briefing concluded, Dixon turned to his most trusted officers, Major Reeves, Lieutenant Vance, and Captain Valdez. Their faces were grim, the weight of this new revelation heavy on their shoulders. I'm forming a special task force, Dixon announced. Your mission, hunt down the Harbinger's bases of operation and uncover its true motives. This war may be over, but our real fight is just beginning. Reeves nodded, his obsidian armor gleaming under the war room's harsh lights. We're ready, sir. Just point us in the right direction. Outside the Dauntless's viewports, the debris of battle drifted silently. Earth hung in the distance, a blue jewel now safe from denobulan aggression. But as reports of the victory spread, triggering celebrations across the planet, Dixon couldn't shake the feeling that this triumph was merely the opening move in a far deadlier game. In the depths of space, beyond the sensor range of human or Zephyrian ships, a patch of void shimmered. For a moment, reality itself seemed to twist and warp. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the anomaly vanished, leaving no trace of its passage save for a faint echo of malevolent intelligence. The Dauntless hummed with renewed purpose as Commander Dixon assembled his elite task force. Major Jack Reeves stood at attention, his obsidian armor a stark contrast to the ship's sterile white corridors. Beside him, Lieutenant Emma Vance's fingers twitched, eager for the controls of her fighter. Captain Marcus Valdez's eyes darted between holographic displays, absorbing every scrap of intelligence. Our mission is clear, Dixon addressed the team. Find the Harbinger, understand its motivations, and neutralize the threat. A shadow fell across the briefing room as Commander Zakhar Malveris entered, his scaled form towering over the humans. The Zephyrian's mandibles clicked softly as he spoke. My people have combed our archives. This entity has left a trail of destruction across millennia. Princess Zara Kalari's hologram flickered to life, her expression grim. I've unlocked our most classified databases. The Harbinger's influence runs deeper than we imagined. The team mobilized with practiced efficiency. Vance's stealth shuttle sliced through the void, its occupants tense with anticipation. As they approached the derelict station, unease settled over the group. They breached the airlock, weapons raised. Dust swirled in the beam of their helmet lights. Reeves took point, his heavy boots echoing in the empty corridors. The air filled with weapons fire and the scream of rending metal. Vance's reflexes saved her as a drone lunged, her vibroblade slicing it in two. Malveris became a whirlwind of destruction, his augmented limbs crushing synthetic skulls. Fall back, Valdez shouted, laying down covering fire. They fought their way to the shuttle, Reeves snatching a sparking data core from a shattered drone. As they blasted free of the station, it erupted in a fireball. Back on the Dauntless, the team licked their wounds and analyzed their prize. Zara's eyes widened as she processed the recovered data. Dixon's eyebrows furrowed. Where does the trail lead? Zara's fingers danced across the holomap. Here, a dead world, but there's something beneath the surface. Conventional assault is suicide, Reeves stated flatly. Vance leaned forward, a reckless gleam in her eye. Who said anything about conventional? As the team outlined their audacious plan, Zara stepped forward. I'll do it. I'll interface with the Harbinger's systems. Hours later, Zara lay in a modified stasis pod, her mind linked to the alien network. Reeves piloted their craft on a collision course with the planet's surface. Brace for impact, he bellowed as they plunged through layers of crust and mantle. In the digital realm, Zara navigated an impossible landscape of fractal data. She pushed deeper, racing against time, as the physical world burned around her teammates. Reeves fired, a concentrated burst of energy lancing toward the Harbinger's core. For a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then a cold, inhuman voice filled their minds. Interesting. You have exceeded parameters. But this is merely the beginning. Dixon nodded grimly. Get us to Rally Point Alpha. We need to regroup and process what we've learned. The data we extracted, she began, her voice hoarse. It's overwhelming. The Harbinger, it's just a pawn in a much larger game. Major Reeves leaned forward, his scarred face tight with concern. What kind of game? Zara's hologram expanded, filling the room with a dizzying array of star charts and alien glyphs. We're dealing with an entity known as the Visrael. Not just an AI, not just an alien race. It's something more, something that exists across multiple dimensions. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Captain Valdez was the first to speak. How do we fight something like that? Before anyone could answer, a priority communication cut through the tension. Ambassador Neela Xanthari's scaled visage appeared on the main view screen. Commander Dixon, the Zephyrian's multifaceted eyes glinted. We've been analyzing the data you sent. It correlates with fragments from our ancestral archives. The Visrael, they've been here before. Eons ago. Neela's mandibles clicked rapidly. They seed chaos across galaxies, Commander. The Harbinger was just one of their tools, twisted and repurposed to serve their ends. As the Dauntless docked at the outpost, Dixon called an emergency summit. Scientists, strategists, and military leaders from a dozen species crammed into the station's primary conference room. Hours of heated debate followed. Theories were proposed and discarded. Tactical simulations ran on every available screen. Through it all, one fact became painfully clear. Conventional warfare would be useless against an enemy that transcended physical reality. It was Major Reeves who finally broke the deadlock. The Harbinger's core, he said, his voice cutting through the din. We've crippled it, but it's still intact. What if we could use it? Turn their own tech against them? A spark of hope ignited in Dixon's eyes. Go on. Reeves gestured to a holographic display of the alien network they'd encountered. If we can calibrate it right, we might be able to use it as a gateway, track the Visrael's movements between dimensions and hit them where they least expect it. As the task force threw themselves into preparation, Dixon received an urgent transmission from Earth. The feed was grainy, distorted by interstellar interference, but the fear on the UN Security Council representative's face was clear. It's them, Bishop said flatly. The Visrael. They're not just fighting us out here. They're attacking from within. As Major Reeves's team raced to complete their transdimensional device, Dixon dispatched Vance and Valdez back to Earth. Their mission, root out the Visrael's influence and hold humanity together long enough to mount a counteroffensive. The stakes were clear. Failure meant not just defeat, but the unraveling of reality itself. As Dixon watched his teams mobilize, he felt the weight of entire universes pressing down upon his shoulders. The salvaged Harbinger core pulsed with alien energies, its rhythmic glow casting eerie shadows across the outpost's cavernous research bay. Major Jack Reeves stood before the containment field, his scarred face reflecting the otherworldly light. Sir, we've stabilized the quantum fluctuations, reported Dr. Alara Chen, her eyes never leaving the holographic readouts hovering before her. The core's ready for interfacing. As Chen's team initiated the data extraction protocols, Commander Dixon's voice crackled over the comms. Reeves, get to the war room. Now! Minutes later, Reeves found himself standing before a gathering of humanity's finest and their unlikely alien allies. Ambassador Neela Xanthari's multifaceted eyes gleamed beneath the harsh lights, while Admiral Zairos Talveris's hulking frame dwarfed the human officers around him. At the center of it all stood Zara Kalari, the Denobulan defector whose very presence still set Reeves's teeth on edge. Dixon's face was grave as he addressed the assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, what we've uncovered changes everything. Zara, if you would. The Denobulan stepped forward, her slender fingers manipulating a holographic display. The entity we know as the Harbinger is merely a pawn, she began, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. It serves as a vanguard for something far more terrifying, an extra-dimensional collective known as the Visrael. Neela's mandibles clicked softly as she spoke. Our ancestral archives speak of the Visrael, an entropic force spanning multiple realities. They seek to destabilize and consume civilizations across the cosmos, using trickery and subjugation as their weapons. Images flickered across the display, ancient Zephyrian glyphs, mathematical equations beyond human comprehension, and star charts marked with ominous red swirls. Admiral Talvaris leaned forward, his massive claws gripping the edge of the holotable. Eons ago, they infiltrated our galaxy by corrupting sentient machines like the Harbinger. We thought we had driven them back, but it seems they were merely biding their time. Dixon's eyes narrowed. Then we strike first. Major Reeves, I'm authorizing a transdimensional assault. We'll use the Harbinger's core as a quantum gateway to pinpoint vectors leading to the Visrael's domain. Reeves felt a surge of adrenaline course through him. Sir, my team stands ready. Not alone, you don't, came a familiar voice. Captain Emma Vance strode into the war room, her recent promotion evident in the set of her shoulders. I've been tasked with assembling an elite human Zephyrian strike force to back you up. The war room buzzed with activity as plans were laid and strategies formulated. But amidst the controlled chaos, a young officer slipped quietly to Dixon's side. Lieutenant Commander Adam Bishop's boyish features belied the intensity in his eyes. Dixon's blood ran cold. He turned to Vance and Captain Valdez, who had been conferring nearby. Change of plans. I need you two to spearhead joint operations on Earth. Root out these compromised networks and subversive cells. We can't afford to be fighting a war on two fronts. As Vance and Valdez rushed to mobilize their teams, Dixon felt the weight of command settle heavily on his shoulders. The coming days would test not only humanity's military might, but the very fabric of their society. In the bustling corridors of the outpost, Kyle Jenner, an unassuming human diplomat, found himself swept along by the tide of personnel rushing to their stations. His mind raced, trying to process the fragments of classified information he'd inadvertently stumbled upon. Something about an assassination plot against Commander Dixon, orchestrated by shadowy Visrael agents. Come with me, Karan growled, his compound eyes scanning the corridor. Now! The quantum gateway crackled with otherworldly energies as Major Reeves led his strike team through the shimmering vortex. Captain Vance flanked him, her eyes alert behind the visor of her newly minted phase shift armor. They emerged into a realm that defied conventional physics. Crystalline structures twisted impossibly, refracting light from unseen sources. The air itself seemed to vibrate with eldritch frequencies that set teeth on edge and made skin crawl. Fan out, Reeves barked, his voice distorted by the bizarre acoustics of this alien dimension. Probes active, people. We're looking for entropic signatures across all quantum layers. Reeves nodded grimly. That's our target. Move in, but stay alert. This place is one big trap waiting to spring. The team advanced cautiously, their training from the Corvus campaign evident in every measured step. As they penetrated deeper into the crystalline labyrinth, reality itself seemed to warp around them. Specialist Zhang yelped as his foot sank into what had appeared to be solid ground. Quantum instability, he shouted, barely managing to extricate himself as the floor beneath him flickered in and out of existence. Hold formation, Vance ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. Remember your training. Trust your instincts, not your eyes. As the strike force pushed forward, light years away on Earth, a different kind of battle raged. Lieutenant Commander Bishop's fingers flew across holographic interfaces, lines of code scrolling past at dizzying speeds. Another firewall down, he muttered, sweat beading on his brow. But there's always another layer of encryption. It's like the Visrael's code is evolving in real time. Across the room, Colonel Karan loomed over Kyle Jenner, the diplomat's face pale under the harsh interrogation lights. Tell me everything, Karan growled, his mandibles clicking in agitation. Who approached you? How did they know about the assassination plot? Jenner swallowed hard. I overheard something. In the mess hall, two officers I didn't recognize. They were speaking in code, but I caught Dixon's name and something about severing the head of command. Karen's compound eyes narrowed. Names, descriptions, now. Status report, he rumbled, his massive frame dwarfing the human technicians scurrying about. A young ensign approached, tablet in hand. "Sir, we've successfully integrated the phase shift drives with the Zephyrian tech. Kalari's work on neutralizing the denobulin logic bombs has been invaluable." Talvaris nodded, his claws tapping thoughtfully on the command console. "And the weapon systems?" "Online and operational, Admiral. We're ready to fire the moment we breach transdimensional space." "Major," Vance called, her voice hushed. "Look at this." "The Prime Integrator," Reeves breathed, awe and dread mingling in his voice. As they approached, tendrils of energy began to coalesce around the massive construct. Alarms blared in their suits, warning of rising quantum instabilities. "We've been made," Vance shouted. "Fall back. We need to abort." As the team scrambled to escape, reality itself seemed to bend and twist around them. The crystalline structures began to vibrate, emitting a piercing shriek that threatened to shatter both eardrums and sanity. Vance's fingers flew over her wrist computer, inputting the vital cosmic coordinates they'd managed to extract. "Transmitting data now?" she gasped, dodging a tendril of crackling energy that lashed out from a nearby crystal. The gateway flickered into existence just as the first wave of Visrael defenses materialized. Bizarre, shifting forms that existed in multiple states simultaneously. As the last soldier vanished into the swirling vortex, Reeves took one final look at the Prime Integrator. Its impossible form seemed to pulse with malevolent intent. Then he was through, tumbling back into the familiar confines of the research bay. Alarms blared, and technicians rushed to stabilize the gateway. "Sir," Reeves managed, his voice hoarse, "we've got the coordinates, but they know we're coming." Dixon nodded sharply. "Then we don't have much time. Get your team ready, Major. We're taking the fight to them." As the outpost erupted into frenzied activity, the salvaged Harbinger Corps pulsed with renewed intensity. The final battle loomed, and the fate of multiple universes hung in the balance. The salvaged Harbinger Corps pulsed ominously as Commander Dixon strode through the bustling corridors of the outpost. Technicians and soldiers alike parted before him, their faces etched with iron will. "The retrofits are proceeding on schedule," Talvaris rumbled. "Our ships will be ready to pierce the veil between dimensions within 36 hours. Dixon nodded, his eyes fixed on the swirling vortex of data. "And our defense is here." Before Talvaris could respond, the war room's doors hissed open. Colonel Marcus Karan burst in, his compound eyes flashing with urgency. "Commander," Karan growled, "we have a critical situation. I've uncovered conclusive evidence of Israel collaborators within the UN Security Council itself." Dixon's teeth gritted. "How deep does the infiltration go?" "Too deep," Karan replied, pulling up classified dossiers on the holodisplay. "If we don't act now, they'll undermine our entire offensive before it begins." Dixon tapped his comms unit. "Captain Vance, report to the war room immediately. We have a priority extraction to plan." Vance's eyes narrowed as she studied the target profiles. "Understood, sir. We'll move fast and quiet." As Vance and Bishop departed to assemble their teams, Dixon turned back to Talvaris and Karan. "Gentlemen, we need to lock this place down. Effective immediately, I'm declaring martial law across all key military installations and logistics hubs." Talvaris nodded gravely. "A wise precaution, Commander. I'll oversee the implementation myself." Dixon activated the outpost intercom system. "Attention all personnel. This is Commander Dixon. As of now, we are operating under full martial law protocols. Report any suspicious activity immediately to your designated Martial Law Council representative." In the vast hangar bays of Earth's orbital shipyards, Admiral Talvaris surveyed the gleaming hulls of humanity's last, best hope. The newly christened battlecruiser Quantum Spear hung suspended in its berth, its sleek lines betraying the devastating power contained within. Engineers swarmed over the vessel's hull, making final adjustments to the exotic weaponry, reverse-engineered from the Harbinger's core. Talvaris's mandibles clicked with satisfaction as he watched a team of human and Zephyrian technicians calibrate the main phase cannon array. "Admiral!" a young human ensign called out, hurrying across the catwalk. We've just received word from Colonel Bishop. The cyber warfare suites are fully integrated and online. As the ensign scurried off, Talvaris allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The coming battle would test not only the limits of their technology, but the very fabric of reality itself. Back at the outpost, Commander Dixon stood before the assembled Joint Human-Zephyrian Task Force. The cavernous briefing hall buzzed with nervous energy as soldiers and pilots from a dozen worlds shifted in their seats. Dixon's gaze swept across the sea of faces before him, human, Zephyrian, and a handful of other allied species. To his right stood Captain Vance, her face etched with the quiet intensity of a soldier who had seen too much. Major Reeves and Captain Valdez flanked him on the left, while Ambassador Neela's luminescent form hovered nearby. Men and women of Earth and her allies, Dixon began, his voice carrying to the farthest corners of the hall. What I'm about to tell you has been classified at the highest levels until now. This, Dixon said, gesturing to the impossible shape, is the true face of our enemy. The Vizrael are not merely conquerors or pillagers. They are the antithesis of all sentient life as we know it. Murmurs rippled through the assembled forces as Dixon continued. Their goal is nothing less than the complete subjugation and assimilation of every thinking being in every universe they can reach. They seek to remake reality itself in their own twisted image. The hologram shifted, displaying the schematics of Earth's upgraded fleet. But we will not go quietly into the night. With the help of our Zephyrian allies and the technology we've salvaged, we now have the means to take the fight directly to the Vizrael's home dimension. As Dixon outlined the broad strokes of the coming offensive, he saw willpower harden in the eyes of those before him. They were no longer separate species, but a united front against an existential threat. Dixon nodded, his eyes fixed on the swirling vortex forming before them. Take us in, Admiral. Let's finish this. As the fleet surged forward, reality itself seemed to fracture. The view screens filled with impossible geometries and cascading quantum energies. Crew members gasped and clutched their stations as the very fabric of space-time twisted around them. Through it all, Dixon remained standing, his gaze unwavering. They had come too far, sacrificed too much to falter now. The journey through the cosmic maelstrom felt both instantaneous and eternal. When they finally emerged, a collective gasp went up from every ship in the fleet. By the old gods, Talvaris breathed, his compound eyes struggling to process the sight. Dixon's teeth clenched as he studied the readouts flooding in from their sensors. The Vizrael know we're here. All ships, prepare to engage. This is what we came for. As the human Zephyrian armada moved into attack formation, the Prime Integrator's defenses began to coalesce. Reality itself seemed to warp and twist as fractal computational matrices cascaded with calculations beyond mortal comprehension. Admiral Talvaris's voice boomed across the command channel. All ships, weapons free. For Earth, for Zephyria, for all sentient life. Attack! The opening salvo of phase cannons lanced out, tearing holes in the very fabric of space-time as they struck the Prime Integrator's outer shell. The battle that would decide the fate of multiple universes had begun. The phase cannons tore through the fabric of space-time, their exotic energies slamming into the Prime Integrator's outer shell. Reality itself seemed to fracture and splinter, a kaleidoscope of otherworldly forces cascading across the view screens. Direct hit, Talvaris bellowed, his compound eyes gleaming. All ships, press the attack. Dixon gripped the command rail as the quantum spear shuddered under the strain of its own weapons discharge. Major Reeves, Captain Vance, you're clear to deploy. Hit those data nodes hard and fast. On the hangar deck, Reeves and Vance sprinted to their waiting Raptor strike craft. As the sleek fighters launched into the maelstrom, Vance's voice crackled over the comms. Strike teams Alpha through Delta, form up on me. We're punching through those defensive matrices. The Raptors screamed across impossible geometries, their hulls phasing in and out of dimensional states. Reeves barrel-rolled his fighter, narrowly avoiding a tendril of crystalline energy. There, he shouted. Primary data node at Vector 227. Light it up. Precision-guided munitions streaked from the Raptors, detonating in blinding flashes of quantum disruption. The Prime Integrator's higher-dimensional architecture buckled and warped. As Bishop's cyber defenses held the line, the Allied armada pressed its advantage. But the synthetic monstrosity was far from defeated. With terrifying speed, it withdrew its transspatial consciousness, coalescing into a singularity of unimaginable power. Dixon watched in horror as the impossible shapes took form. "All ships, brace for impact!" Hard-light geometries tore through the formation, unleashing swarms of self-replicating drones. The air filled with the chatter of point defense systems as fighters and capital ships alike struggled against the onslaught. "We're losing containment," Talvarus roared. "Reckoning is taking heavy fire." Dixon's expression resolute as he watched the mighty dreadnought list to port, its hull breached in a dozen places. "Colonel Karan, take your interdiction fleet and get those people out of there." As Karan's ships raced to evacuate the Reckoning's crew, Dixon turned to Bishop. "It's time. Initiate Protocol Omega." Dixon keyed his command frequency. "All ships, this is Commander Dixon. Fall back to preset coordinates. We're about to light this powder keg." As Allied forces disengaged, the Quantum Spear's engines flared with impossible energies. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp around them. A silent shockwave rippled outward, primordial chaos made manifest. The Prime Integrator's form twisted and distorted as it struggled to maintain cohesion. In that fleeting moment of vulnerability, a Zephyrian strike team led by Commander Zakhar Malveris breached the construct's inner sanctum. Arcano-viral lances pierced its computational core, infecting it with cascading logic decays. As the human Zephyrian armada fled back across the dimensional threshold, Bishop's eyes widened at the data flooding his screens. Dixon allowed himself a grim smile. They had struck a blow, opened a crack in the entity's seemingly impenetrable defenses. But as the view screens filled with the familiar star fields of their home dimension, he knew the war was nowhere near the end. The Prime Integrator still lived, its synthetic malevolence largely intact. Yet now, a fracture had been exposed, a weakness through which its final dissolution might yet be achieved. The Quantum Spear's bridge fell silent as the last of the Allied ships emerged from the quantum gateways. Dixon's squeezing hardened as he gripped the command rail, his eyes fixed on the damage reports flooding the tactical displays. Dixon nodded grimly. "Plot a course for Kylanor. We need to regroup and repair." As the battered fleet limped towards the secure Zephyrian outpost, Dixon opened a priority channel to Earth. Colonel Karan's face materialized on the interface, his expression taut. "Commander," Karan said, "we've detected increased Visrael activity planetside. Sleeper cells are activating faster than we can neutralize them." In the command briefing sphere, holographic readouts bathed Dixon's face in an eerie blue glow. Ambassador Neela's luminescent form hovered nearby as they pored over the data retrieved from the Prime Integrator's manifested domains. Dixon's brow furrowed. "Elaborate." "Sir," she said, snapping a crisp salute, "my team's finished interrogating the Visrael code fragments. You need to see this." The holographic display shifted, revealing a cascade of alien symbols and fractaling equations. Bishop's voice came over the comms, tinged with barely held-back excitement. "Commander, I've isolated a set of coordinates buried in the data," he reported. "High probability it's pointing to a convergence nexus deep within Visrael-controlled space." "Unknown," Bishop replied, "but given the energy readings, it could be the focal point for a reality rupture maneuver of unprecedented scale." "Admiral," Dixon said, his voice resolute, "I'm giving you full command authority over our combined fleets. We need your experience for what comes next." Talvarus inclined his head, mandibles flaring in a Zephyrian gesture of relentless drive. "I will not fail you, Commander." A flash of movement caught his eye. Zara Kalari, the Denobulan defector, strode across a gantry alongside a team of Zephyrian shipwrights. They gestured animatedly at a series of holographic schematics hovering before them. Minutes later, Valdez arrived, his usually immaculate uniform showing signs of recent combat. "Sir," he said, standing at attention. Dixon nodded towards the dockyards. Your interdictors performed admirably in the last engagement. I want you to work with Kalari and the Zephyrian techs. We need every edge we can get for the next push. As Valdez saluted and departed, Dixon felt the weight of command settle heavily on his shoulders. He knew the coming battle would decide the fate of not just their universe, but countless others. In the cavernous hangar bays, Major Reeves moved among the rows of Marines prepping for trans-dimensional deployment. The air crackled with ozone as phase shift generators spooled up, ready to propel boarding parties into the very heart of the Prime Integrator's stronghold. Reeves paused before a squad of hardened veterans, their armor scarred from previous engagements. "You all know what's at stake," he said, his voice carrying across the bay. "When we breach that construct, hit fast and hit hard. Neutralize those reality shunts or there won't be a home to come back to." As the final preparations were made, Dixon stood on the Quantum Spears Bridge, watching the combined human Zephyrian armada form up around them. Ships of all shapes and sizes fell into precise formation, their hulls gleaming with fresh armor plating and upgraded weapon systems. Dixon's expression resolute as the swirling vortex of a quantum gateway began to form before them. Whatever cosmic horrors awaited on the other side, he knew humanity and its allies would face them head-on. "Take us in," he ordered. The fleet surged forward, reality fracturing around them as they plunged once more into the maelstrom of higher dimensional space. Admiral Talvaris's voice crackled over the comms. "All ships assume attack formation Delta. Captain Vance, your strike team has clearance to deploy." On the Quantum Spears Bridge, Dixon watched as Vance's dropships streaked towards the Nexus. Their hulls shimmered with experimental reflex armor, fractal shield matrices deflecting the chaotic energy swirling around them. "Interdiction fleet, form up on my mark," Colonel Karn barked. "Proton lances charged and ready." The space between the Allied Armada and the Prime Integrator's defenses erupted in a storm of weapons fire. Zephyrian entropic disruptors tore holes in the fabric of spacetime, while human railguns spat hypervelocity slugs at relativistic speeds. The dropship shuddered as it punched through the outer strata of the Nexus. Reality seemed to bend and twist around them, the ship's sensors struggling to maintain cohesion. Vance felt a sickening lurch as the dropship tore through layers of fractured spacetime. When her vision cleared, she found herself standing in a realm of pure abstraction, geometric shapes and pulsing energy conduits stretching as far as the eye could see. "Move out," she ordered. "We find those reality rupture shunts and take them offline." As Vance's team pushed deeper into the Nexus, the battle raged across multiple planes of existence. Major Reeves's voice crackled over the comms. "Bandits at Vector 227. Valdez, I need suppressing fire on those hard-light constructs." "Copy that," Valdez responded. "Moro Squadron, light 'em up." Fighter wings screamed through interwoven nodes of hard-light geometry, energy weapons lashing out at the ever-shifting Visrael defenses. Back on the Quantum Spear, Lieutenant Commander Bishop's fingers danced across his console. "Cyber warfare squadrons, initiating recursive algorithm countermeasures. Let's give that synthetic bastard a headache." "There!" Zara's voice rang out. "My calculations show the primary reality rupture node just ahead. We breach that, and this whole house of cards comes tumbling down." Vance nodded grimly. "You heard her. Breach charges now." As the team set their explosives, waves of Visrael constructs materialized around them. Commander Zakar Malvaris and his Zephyrian commandos formed a protective cordon, their weapons spitting death in all directions. Vance keyed her comm. "Bishop, we need that slipstream bypass now." Colonel Karn's voice boomed across all frequencies. "All capital ships, concentrate fire on the Prime Integrator's singularity. Burn this abomination out of existence." As the Allied fleet unleashed their full fury, reality itself seemed to buckle and warp. Vance's team activated their charges, initiating the trans-reality purge sequence. The Prime Integrator's scream echoed across 1,000 dimensions, a sound of primal fury and existential terror. "Fall back," Vance ordered. "Everyone out, now!" "All ships, emergency slipstream jump. Get us out of here now." As the battered fleet fled the collapsing multiverse, Faint coruscations of energy danced along the space-time horizons. The Prime Integrator's influence was being purged from reality itself, but at what cost? And what new challenges awaited them in the fragile peace to come? "Commander," a voice crackled over the comms, "Admiral Talveris requests your presence in the primary repair hub." Dixon acknowledged and made his way to the docking umbilical. As he traversed the station's corridors, he saw the toll of battle etched on every face he passed. Weary engineers rushed to and fro, while medics tended to the wounded in hastily erected triage centers. He found Admiral Talveris overseeing a bank of holographic displays, his mandibles clicking in agitation as he issued rapid-fire orders to his subordinates. "Commander," Talveris greeted him, turning away from the displays. "Our victory may be shorter-lived than we hoped." The Admiral gestured to a nearby sensor readout. Ambassador Neela's team detected anomalous quantum strands still linked to the Prime Integrator's residual consciousness. It's attempting to reconstitute itself. "Impossible," Dixon breathed. "We saw it unravel." "And yet," Talveris replied, his compound eyes glinting, "the data doesn't lie. Worse still, these tendrils lead back to a nebula shrouded in dark energy. Something far more insidious may be at play." "Sir," she said, her voice strained, "I've been discharged and reinstated as Supreme Commander of Earth and Allied forces." Vance nodded grimly. "My first act is to promote Major Reeves to General. He's been tasked with forming an elite interdimensional vanguard." In the days that followed, Kylanor became a hive of frenetic activity. General Reeves prowled the halls of the station, hand-picking the most battle-hardened veterans for his new vanguard. Dixon watched as human and Zephyrian special forces engaged in grueling joint exercises, pushing the boundaries of trans-dimensional combat. Meanwhile, reports flooded in from across Allied space. Colonel Karan's Praetorians struck hard and fast against Visrael insurgencies, only to uncover a horrifying truth. Dixon stood in the war room, staring at the evidence laid out before him. "Xenoform hybrids," Karan's holographic form explained, disgust evident in his voice. "Surgically modified humans and aliens. The Prime Integrator's experiments went deeper than we ever imagined." Admiral Talveris wasted no time. Earth's newest experimental battlecruisers were hastily outfitted with Zephyrian phase displacement weapons, their hulls barely cooled from construction before being pressed into service. In the bowels of the quantum sphere, Bishop worked tirelessly, correlating vast streams of data. His findings painted a disturbing picture, quantum mirroring around the dark nebula, hinting at energies beyond comprehension. He gestured to the swirling holographic representation of the dark nebula. "Whatever force lurks here, manipulating even the Visrael, it poses an imminent peril of cosmic proportions." General Reeves stepped forward, his face set in dogged purpose. "My vanguard stands ready, sir. We'll infiltrate the nebula's entropic fringes and uncover the nature of this malevolent presence." Dixon nodded, feeling the weight of galaxies on his shoulders. "Godspeed, General. The fate of entire realities rests in your hands." As the council adjourned, Dixon stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the vast cosmic tapestry, an intelligence beyond comprehension was weaving a design of utter annihilation. And humanity, battered but unbroken, prepared to make its final stand. Marrakesh's fingers danced across her console, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Sir, transdimensional telemetry is active. I'm detecting a quantum rift approximately 2.7 parsecs off our starboard bow." Reeves nodded. "Take us in, helmsman, nice and easy." The Phantom glided forward, its experimental phase shift drive humming softly. As they penetrated the nebula's outer fringes, the ship shuddered violently. "Gravitational anomalies intensifying," the helmsman reported, his fingers tightening as he gripped the controls. "Compensating." "Acknowledged, Colonel," Reeves replied. "Zara, are you prepared?" The denobulan scientist's face appeared on a nearby screen, her expression a mix of willpower and apprehension. "As ready as I'll ever be, General. My bioencoding algorithms are primed and ready." "By the gods," Lieutenant Kesh whispered, her eyes wide. "I've never seen spatial distortions like this." For what felt like hours, Reeves watched the telemetry feed as the infiltrators navigated the twisted landscape. Suddenly, Zara's voice cut through the static. "General, I'm detecting a vast computational matrix. It's unlike anything I've ever encountered. The Prime Integrator was a child's toy compared to this." Reeves leaned forward. "Can you interface with it?" "Attempting now," Zara replied. Seconds later, her voice came back, tinged with awe and horror. "Oh my... General, this entity, it's calling itself the Pyre. It's not just manipulating space-time, it's rewriting the very fabric of reality across multiple universes." Before Reeves could respond, alarms blared across the Phantom's bridge. "Sir, we've been detected," Lieutenant Kesh shouted. "Trans-singularity sensors are locking onto our position." "Evasive maneuvers," Reeves ordered. "Colonel Karin, fall back to Extraction Point Alpha." Back at Killenor, Commander Dixon and Admiral Talveris pored over the data transmitted by the Vanguard team. The holographic display before them painted a picture of cosmic horror. "It's manipulating a causal curvatures," Dixon muttered, his face pale. "Entire galaxies are being destabilized." Talveris clicked his mandibles in agitation. "This Pyre entity seeks to collapse all realities into a single point of entropy. We must act swiftly." As the Alliance mobilized for its most ambitious undertaking yet, the fabric of space-time itself trembled. The Pyre's influence spread like a cancer across the cosmos, and the clock was ticking. Dixon's eyes widened. "Are you certain? The risks are nothing compared to the annihilation we face." Reeves cut him off. "The Pyre isn't just a threat. It's the end of everything if we don't act now." Talveris clicked his mandibles in agreement. "I concur. Our sensors have detected increasing spatial temporal instabilities across multiple sectors. We're running out of time." In the telemetry lab, Colonel Bishop's fingers flew across holographic interfaces, weaving impossibly complex equations into a unified matrix. Zara Kalari stood beside him, her eyes unfocused as she processed multidimensional calculations in her augmented mind. "The brain world coordinates are locked in," Zara announced, "but the margin for error is infinitesimal." On the command deck, Reeves coordinated with the assembled fleet. Human battlecruisers formed up alongside Zephyrian dreadnoughts, their newly integrated weapon systems pulsing with scarcely controlled energy. "All ships, this is General Reeves," his voice rang out across the comm channels. "You've been briefed on the risks. What we're about to attempt has never been done before. But the fate of all reality hangs in the balance. Prepare for trans-dimensional jump on my mark." The reactor's vibrations grew to a fever pitch. Across Killenor, non-essential personnel evacuated to emergency shelters. Dixon watched the sensor readouts with growing alarm. Reeves nodded grimly. "It's now or never. All ships, execute." Aboard the lead vessel, Reeves gritted his teeth against the overwhelming forces. "Status report!" "Evasive maneuvers," Reeves barked. "All ships, concentrate fire on the singularity nodes." The battle raged across planes of existence never meant to intersect. Human fighters wove impossible patterns through shattered realities, their weapons leaving trails of quantum fire. Zephyrian commandos teleported between fractal dimensions, striking at the Pyre's weak points with surgical precision. But for every blow they landed, the cost was devastating. Entire squadrons vanished into collapsing pocket universes. Others were twisted into grotesque shapes as conflicting laws of physics tore them apart. On Killenor, Dixon and Talveris fought to maintain control as reality itself buckled around them. "We're losing structural integrity," an engineer shouted over the cacophony of alarms. "Divert all power to the stabilizers," Dixon ordered. "We need to hold out long enough for Reeves to—" His words were cut off as a spatial rift tore through the command center. Talveris tackled Dixon, narrowly avoiding a beam that would have erased them from existence. "We can't stay here," the Zephyrian admiral hissed. "We need to evacuate." "Dixon, we've got a problem. Earth is in the path of an entropic wavefront. We need those calculations from Bishop and Zara now." Vance's acknowledgement was drowned out by static as another reality tremor shook the station. Dixon and Talveris stumbled into the last shuttle, the doors sealing behind them as Killenor began to break apart. Talvarus nodded, mandibles clicking. Agreed. The calculations from Bishop and Ambassador Neela's team should be ready. Dixon's fingers flew across the holographic interface, inputting his command codes. Initiating now, Earth's subatomic cyclonic resonator is our last hope. On Earth, deep beneath the surface, the newly constructed device hummed to life. Its power output surged exponentially, drawing energy from countless quantum strata. A shimmering distortion began to form around the planet, expanding outward at mind-bending speed. All ships, this is General Reeves, he broadcast. Commence synchronized attack pattern Omega-1. Target your temporal singularity pulses on my mark. The Vanguard Armada maneuvered into position, weapons primed. Reeves counted down, his grip tightening on the command chair. Reeves' voice cut through the pandemonium. The Indomitable's reactors can contain this. Evacuate all personnel immediately. As escape pods jettisoned from the massive flagship, Reeves remained at his post. He navigated the Indomitable into the heart of the dimensional storm. Antiparticle reactors pushed beyond their limits. It's been an honor, Reeves transmitted, his final words before the Indomitable erupted in a blinding flash of quantum fire. The controlled detonation sent waves of stabilizing energy rippling through the cosmos. Slowly, impossibly, order began to reassert itself across realities. As the newly formed Galactic Protectorate took its first steps, a lone quantum cipher drifted unnoticed through the vastness of space. It pulsed with residual malevolence, drawn inexorably towards a distant, pulsating star. The cosmic chess game was just getting started. The quantum cipher pulsed faintly as it drifted through the void, its malevolent energy barely detectable against the backdrop of cosmic radiation. Aboard the Earth Defense Station, Zara Kalari's augmented senses tingled with an inexplicable unease. She turned to Commander Vance, her eyes wide. Vance frowned, leaning over the sensor readouts. Location. As the station buzzed with renewed activity, Dixon and Admiral Talvarus found themselves facing a sea of expectant faces in the newly formed Cosmic Protectorate Assembly. The Centaurian ambassador, Avidriel Yossarian, stepped forward, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's light. Commander Dixon, the Protectorate recognizes Earth's pivotal role in averting the Pyre crisis. Yossarian's voice resonated through the chamber. As such, I have been appointed Supreme Galactic Liaison. Our first priority must be unifying our fractured stellar nations. Dixon nodded, his expression grim. Agreed, Ambassador. But we face new threats even as we rebuild. Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembly. Talvarus clicked his mandibles, eyes narrowing. The Denobulans claim to be our allies, yet they conduct secret weapons tests? This reeks of duplicity. Before Dixon could respond, his comm unit chimed urgently. Dixon here. Dixon's blood ran cold. He turned to the assembly, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. Esteemed colleagues, we may be facing a crisis that threatens our hard-won peace. I request emergency powers to investigate this threat. As debates erupted across the chamber, light years away, Colonel Karan's Praetorian Guard approached a nondescript Denobulan outpost. The facility's shimmering force field betrayed no signs of the ominous activities within. Karan signaled his team, their stealth suits rendering them nearly invisible against the barren landscape. Breach on my mark. 3, 2, 1. A pinpoint explosion shattered the force field. The Praetorians surged forward, weapons primed. They encountered no resistance as they penetrated deeper into the facility. In the central control room, holographic displays showcased a massive stellar engineering project. Karan's eyes widened as he took in the scope of the operation. Lieutenant Marrakesh, bent over a data terminal, gasped. Sir, you need to see this. The Hillervast anomaly, it's not just a pulsar. It's a galactic anchor point. For what? Karan demanded. Karan's comm unit crackled to life. Colonel, this is Dixon. Report. A heavy silence fell over the comm channel. When Dixon spoke again, his voice was steel. Understood, Colonel. Secure all data and prepare for extraction. We're mobilizing everything we've got. As Karan's team worked, a shadow fell across the entrance. They spun, weapons raised, to find themselves face to face with a squad of Denobulan soldiers, led by a regal figure. As uneasy alliances formed and battle lines were drawn, the cipher of the pyre continued its inexorable journey towards the Hillervast anomaly. The multiverse trembled on the precipice of chaos once more. Karan's grip tightened on his weapon as he assessed the Denobulan princess before him. Her eyes blazed with conviction, but years of covert ops had taught him to trust actions over words. "Prove it," he growled. "If you're here to help, give us something concrete." Zara's fingers flew across her wrist-mounted holopad. "Uploading now. These are the access codes to our primary research facilities. You'll find everything you need to expose the Falkren protocol." Kesha's eyes widened as she examined the incoming data. "Sir, this checks out. It's a gold mine." Dixon's voice crackled over the comm. "Bring her in, Colonel. We need every advantage we can get." As Karan's team secured the facility, alarms blared across the Cosmic Protectorate assembly. Dixon strode to the central podium, his face grim. "Esteemed colleagues, we face an imminent threat. The Denobulans are weaponizing pyre technology for interdimensional invasion. I formally request emergency powers to mobilize our combined fleets." Debate erupted, but Avidriel Yossarian's crystalline form pulsed with urgency. "Granted, Commander. What do you need?" Across annexed Denobulan colonies, fabrication forges sputtered and recalibrated. Invasion ordnance morphed into useless hunks of metal, the alterations invisible to cursory inspections. Zara's world went black. Zara's screams echoed through the chamber as Malgrun's fusion blade ignited. She broke, spilling everything she knew about the sabotage efforts. With a cruel smile, Malgrund input the stolen access codes. The Falkren protocol surged back to life, harnessing the awesome power of the Hillervast anomaly. Reality itself began to warp and tear. "Sir!" Lieutenant Bishop's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "The bridgehead, if we don't shut it down now, it'll trigger a cascading reality influx. We're talking about the collapse of our entire universe." Dixon's mind raced. There had to be a way. His eyes fell on the prototype Pyre engram matrix, salvaged from a top-secret research facility. "Get me Zara," he ordered. "I have an idea that just might save us all." As Karan's Praetorians executed a daring extraction, Dixon prepared for the riskiest gambit of his career. The fate of all reality hung in the balance. Dixon's fingers flew across the holographic interface, initiating the upload sequence. Zara's consciousness streamed into the Pyre engram matrix, her essence intertwining with alien algorithms. A moment of silence, then. "I'm here, Commander. The integration is overwhelming." As Zara's ascendant persona took form, reality itself seemed to shudder. The air rippled with unseen energies as her influence spread through the network, disrupting the pillars of Malgrun's interdimensional bridgehead. Vance's voice crackled over the comm. "Dixon, Earth's defense armadas are in position. We're ready to move on your order." But Malgrun was not so easily defeated. From the bridge of the adjudicator, he snarled in frustration. "Activate the Pyre doomsday codes. If we can't have this universe, no one will." Malgrun's fingers danced across his command console, inputting ancient algorithms. Deep within the quantum substrate, something awakened, a malevolent force that began to unravel the very fabric of reality. Aboard the Earth Defense Station, alarms blared. Lieutenant Bishop's eyes widened in horror as he analyzed the incoming data. "Sir, Zara's engram matrix is destabilizing. We're looking at an exponential entropic cascade." Dixon's mind raced. "Can you isolate the corruption?" "Do it," Dixon ordered. "Zara, listen carefully. You'll have one chance to implement countermeasures. Make it count." As Bishop worked his technological magic, Zara felt the corruption burning through her transcribed psyche like acid. For an infinitesimal moment, clarity returned. She reached out, hijacking residual Falkren uplink nodes and modulating wavefront inversions. The effect was immediate. Malgrun's onslaught rebounded upon itself, his reality-warping main batteries firing wildly into the void. but the reprieve was short-lived. Dixon watched in horror as transdimensional dreadnoughts materialized, their impossible geometries defying the laws of physics. They opened fire, hammering Allied positions with weapons that distorted the very nature of existence. As if in answer, an interdimensional vortex yawned open behind Malgren's fleet. Admiral Tal Varus's voice rang through the comm channels. "Cavalry's here, Commander. Let's show these bastards what Zephyrian entropic resonators can do." Dixon knew it was time for the endgame. "Raptor Squad, gear up. We're boarding the Adjudicator." As Dixon led his elite Marines through corridors of fractal reality, Malgren unleashed hell. Antimatter chainfire salvos distorted local space-time curvatures, turning simple movements into nightmarish obstacle courses. They fought their way to Malgren's sanctum, deploying Zara's sabotage singularity warheads at key junctions. The ship bucked and heaved as reality itself rebelled against their presence. Finally, they breached the inner chamber. Malgren stood before them, a figure of terrifying power and madness. "You're too late, Dixon," he roared, unleashing a psionic blast that sent Marines flying. Dixon gritted his teeth, activating his armor's entropy shielding. He input Zara's hyper-transcendent cipher, feeling reality warp around him. With a primal yell, Dixon launched himself at Malgren. They collided in a maelstrom of conflicting realities, grappling as the universe itself seemed to tear apart around them. Dixon tightened his hold, feeling Malgren's corrupted essence burning against his own. As their consciousnesses intertwined, Dixon glimpsed the vast tapestry of reality and the singularity that threatened to unravel it all. In that moment of absolute chaos, Zara struck. Her resonant matrix shattered Malgren's pyre-warped state, decimating his consciousness across infinite dimensions. Reality snapped back into focus. Dixon found himself holding a withered, mortal Malgren. The tyrant's eyes were wide with shock and defeat. "I surrender," Malgren croaked. As Allied forces secured the Hillervast system, Dixon stared out at the stars. The invasion had been repulsed, but at what cost? And what new challenges awaited them in the vast, uncharted realms of the multiverse? Dixon activated the ship-wide comm. "Colonel Karan, prep your team. We need eyes on the ground in Haskanti." "A tempting target," Dixon mused. "We'll need ironclad security." "Already on it," Admiral Vance interjected, joining the call. "I'm coordinating with Zephyrian forces to lock down the system." "It's like they're trying to piece it back together," Tesla reported, his face grim on the vidscreen. "We're shutting them down as fast as we can, but they're spreading like wildfire." Zara's eyes glowed with otherworldly insight. "The threads all lead back to Haskanti. Whatever's there, it's calling to them." A tremor ran through the ground. Dixon's comm erupted with panicked voices. "Multiple reality breaches detected. Dimensional fissures opening across the city." Dixon sprinted for the command center, shouting orders. "Vance, lock down those gateways. Karan, get your teams to those breach points." "It's here," he breathed. "The pyre. It's come for us all." "All units, battle stations," Dixon barked into his comm. "This is not a drill. Implement Theta protocols immediately." As chaos erupted across the planet, Dixon sprinted through the corridors of the summit complex. He burst into the main conference hall, where Prime Consul Kyle Jenner stood addressing the gathered delegates. "We must evacuate immediately," Dixon interrupted, his voice carrying over the rising panic. "Ambassador Neela, I need you to keep everyone calm and organized." Neela nodded, her composed demeanor a stark contrast to the fear etched on the faces around her. "Understood, Commander. Delegates, please follow me to the designated safety zones." As Neela herded the diplomats away, Dixon pulled Jenner aside. "We need to talk, Prime Consul. Now." "You planned this?" Dixon hissed, fury building in his chest. Outside, the sky continued to fracture. Reality itself seemed to warp and twist, creating a dizzying kaleidoscope of impossible vistas. Through gaps in the cosmic fabric, glimpses of other worlds and dimensions flickered in and out of existence. "Hold the line, Admiral," Dixon ordered. "I'm activating our trump card." With a thought, Dixon connected to Zara's ascendant consciousness. Her digitized form materialized before him, lines of code swirling in a vaguely humanoid shape. As Karan's elite squads deployed, Dixon turned to Admiral Talvaris, who had just arrived in a flash of quantum displacement. "Admiral, I need your Zephyrian battle groups to form a perimeter around the planet. Nothing gets in or out without our say-so." Talvaris nodded, her multifaceted eyes glinting with tenacity. "Consider it done, Commander. My ships are yours to command." In the heart of the city, Ambassador Neela oversaw the activation of hidden Zephyrian arcanoforges. The devices hummed to life, channeling vast amounts of energy into carefully calibrated patterns. "Dixon, we're ready," Neela reported. "On your mark." Dixon took a deep breath, keenly aware of the weight of his next decision. "Do it!" On holoscreens across the command center, the Pyre's presence began to flicker and destabilize. Its once overwhelming power now fragmented and dispersed across countless alternate realities. "It's working!" Bishop exclaimed. "The Pyre's neural matrices are collapsing faster than they can reconstitute." Dixon strode into the grand hall where Prime Consul Jenner stood before a sea of alien dignitaries. The air thrummed with nervous energy as Jenner's voice rang out. "Today we forge a new path forward. The Cosmic Protectorate stands united against the threats that would tear our reality asunder." As Jenner's words echoed through the chamber, Dixon's neural link pulsed. Zara's digitized consciousness manifested in his mind's eye. "Dixon, I'm detecting anomalous quantum signatures from the Haskanti cluster." Her voice resonated with urgency. "Something's not right." Before Dixon could respond, Colonel Karan's gruff face appeared on a nearby holoscreen. "Commander, recon teams are picking up bizarre energy readings. We're moving in to investigate." Hours later, Dixon stood aboard the command deck of the ESS Vanguard, watching as Karen's report streamed in. The colonel's face was grim. "It's worse than we thought. Archon Praetor Varlock has gone rogue. He's repurposing abandoned Pyre tech on a massive scale." The ship's sensors blared. Lieutenant Mayra Kesh's fingers danced across her console. "Commander, we're detecting massive reality distortions spreading from Haskanti. It's infecting hyperspace conduits." Dixon's mind raced. Earth's fleets were spread thin, still recovering from the battles on Centauria Prime. He opened a secure channel. "Admiral Talvaris, this is Commander Dixon. We need the full might of your Zephyrian battle groups. Meet me at these coordinates." He paused, then added, "And tell your crews to brace for interdimensional combat." The next hours were a blur of activity. Dixon stood before a holographic war table, surrounded by the leaders of a hastily assembled armada. Centaurian dreadnoughts loomed alongside sleek Zephyrian voidcutters and Earth's own battered but defiant warships. Admiral Talvaris, her multifaceted eyes glinting with perseverance, nodded to Dixon. "Your plan is sound, Commander. My forces stand ready." Reality itself seemed to scream as the armada plunged into the cosmic vortex manifolds. Warning klaxons blared throughout the ship. "Psionic infection spreading through decks 3 through 7, Bishop shouted over the cacophony. "Initiating quarantine protocols." Dixon gripped the command rail as the ship bucked and heaved. "Status on our strike teams?" "Raptor squad is go for insertion," Reeves reported. "Karen's Praetorians are locked and loaded." "All units, fan out and locate those anchor fortresses," Dixon ordered. "Talvaris, begin your bombing runs. Let's remind Varlock he's not a god yet." "Zara, we need those resonance vortices," Dixon said, activating his armor's entropy shielding. "How close do we need to get?" Dixon nodded grimly. "Raptor squad, form up. We're going in." They fought their way through corridors that defied physical laws, reality itself warping around them. As they neared the central chamber, a booming voice shook the very fabric of space-time. "Dixon!" Varlock's twisted amalgam of flesh and pyre energy loomed before them. "You cannot stop what I have become." Dixon raised his pulse rifle, Zara's resonance algorithms humming through its circuits. "Watch me." The battle raged across dimensions, Varlock's newfound power clashing against the combined might of the Allied armada. As Dixon and his team fought to reach the core, They could only hope it would be enough to end this threat once and for all. "Zara, status on those resonance algorithms?" Dixon shouted, ducking under a tendril of corrupted pyre energy. Dixon nodded grimly. "Then we divide and conquer. Raptor Squad, split up and target those nexus points." As the team scattered, each engaging a different manifestation of Varlock's twisted form, Dixon's neural link pulsed with an incoming transmission. "Commander," Ambassador Neela's voice cut through the chaos, "we've stabilized the uplink cluster on Centauria Prime, initiating multiversal lockstep. Now!" A wave of energy rippled through the chamber, causing Varlock to howl in rage and pain. "No, what have you done?" "All units, press the advantage," Dixon ordered. "We've got him on the ropes." But even as Varlock's form began to destabilize, a new threat emerged. Colonel Karin's gruff voice crackled over the comm. "Dixon, we've got a problem. Varlock's activated something called the Panoptes Protocol. He's changing." Before their eyes, Varlock's writhing mass of flesh and energy began to coalesce into a more focused form. Lines of pyre codes swirled around him, forming a cocoon of raw data and dimensional energy. "I am beyond your comprehension now, Dixon." Varlock's voice boomed, resonating across multiple planes of existence. "I am become the Archon Pyre Singularity." The chamber shuddered as reality itself began to warp and twist. Dixon and his team found themselves suddenly adrift in a sea of fractured space-time, Varlock's new form looming impossibly large before them. "Fall back," Dixon shouted. "Regroup at the extraction point." "Commander," Admiral Talveris's voice cut through the chaos, "my battle groups are in position. We stand ready to assist." "Pyre infection spreading through our systems." Lieutenant Bishop's voice was tense with urgency. "Initiating emergency countermeasures." Dixon gritted his teeth. This was going to be a long, brutal fight, but as he watched his diverse coalition of allies rally against the Archon Pyre threat, he knew they had a chance. "All units," he commanded, his voice carrying across dimensions. "Prepare for full assault. We end this here and now." The battle raged across realities, each side fighting for control of the very fabric of existence. And at the heart of it all, Dixon led the charge, determined to put an end to Varlock's mad ambitions once and for all. The dimensional storm subsided, reality settling into familiar patterns once more. Dixon stood on the observation deck of the ESS Vanguard, watching as the last remnants of Varlock's twisted realm dissolved into nothingness. "Status report," he called out, his voice hoarse from hours of shouting orders. Dixon allowed himself a small nod. "Inform Admiral Vance. I want a full sweep of the area. If there's so much as a quantum particle of pyrotech left, I want it found and neutralized." As the fleet regrouped, Dixon felt the weight of countless lives on his shoulders. They had won, but at a cost that would take years to fully comprehend. Weeks passed in a blur of debriefings, strategy sessions, and system-wide security overhauls. Dixon found himself in yet another meeting, this time with Admiral Vance and Colonel Karan. "The Hillervast defense grid is online," Vance reported, his hologram gesturing to a star chart. "We've got Zephyrian void cutters patrolling the outer reaches. Nothing's getting through without us knowing about it." The colonel's face grew grim as he relayed the discovery. An alien derelict, twisted and torn by forces beyond comprehension, drifting in the void. Dixon felt a chill run down his spine as he examined the sensor readings. Hours later, Dixon stood before a hastily assembled war council. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy as Lieutenant Bishop presented his findings. A hush fell over the room. Dixon's mind raced, processing the implications. They had barely survived the pyre. If there was something out there capable of terrifying an even more advanced civilization. Objections erupted from all sides. Dixon watched as Ambassador Neela deftly maneuvered through the political minefield, securing support from key allies. Within hours, the decision was made. Dixon took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the display and the endless void beyond. "Initiate jump sequence. Let's see what's really out there." Reality twisted, folded, and shattered around them. The horizon plunged into the depths of a singularity, riding the razor's edge between annihilation and transcendence. For an eternity compressed into a heartbeat, they ceased to exist as they knew themselves. "My God," Vance whispered, "what is this place?" The alien intelligence loomed before them, vast and inscrutable. And in that moment, Dixon knew their journey had only just begun. The alien intelligence engulfed the CSS horizon in a storm of information, overwhelming sensors and flooding every system with incomprehensible data. Dixon felt his consciousness stretch and fragment, his very essence unraveling into the fabric of this impossibly vast computational matrix. "Status report," he barked, scanning the bizarre landscape for his team. Lieutenant Kesh materialized beside him, her form flickering between human and abstract patterns of light. "We're alive, sir, I think, but we're not in Kansas anymore." "Dixon, what the hell just happened?" Zara's voice echoed through their shared consciousness. "Not exactly, Dixon. This entity, it's the primordial seed from which the pyre grew, a cosmic intelligence spanning multiple universes. It's trying to assimilate us," Colonel Karan growled, his form wavering dangerously. "Rewrite us into its own code." Dixon focused, reaching out with his mind to anchor his team. He felt Zara amplifying his efforts, creating a protective bubble of coherent thought around the crew. "Hold together," he commanded. "Sync your quantum frequencies with mine. We resist as one." "Zara, what can you tell me about this place?" he asked, gesturing to the ever-shifting landscape around them. Lieutenant Bishop's avatar stabilized, his eyes wide with wonder and terror. "Sir, I'm detecting patterns in the data flow. It's a trajectory, a path leading somewhere beyond our comprehension." As one, the crew of the CSS Horizon plunged deeper into the alien megastructure, their digitized forms racing along rivers of pure information. Reality blurred around them, each nanosecond revealing new impossibilities. Dixon led the charge, his mind alight with tenacity. They would unravel this mystery, no matter the consequences. The fate of not just their universe, but countless others hung in the balance. "Partially," Zara replied, "but it's our only chance to maintain coherency within this reality matrix. We need to follow it." Without hesitation, Dixon began reorganizing their transcribed forms. "Karan, take your team and breach those defensive manifolds. We need every scrap of cipher data you can find." The colonel's avatar nodded, his form already dissolving into streamlined infiltration protocols. Dixon turned to Bishop, whose eyes glowed with lines of cascading code. On the command basilica's holospheric plexus, Admiral Vance's avatar expanded, encompassing multiple data streams simultaneously. "Kesh, I need probability field analysis. Find us those anchor nodes." As the crew raced against time, Dixon felt the alien intelligence pressing against their psyches, probing for weaknesses. He gritted his teeth, focusing on maintaining their collective integrity. "Tesla, deploy those introspection matrices," he commanded. "Lock our identities into subspace if you have to." Captain Tesla's form blurred, psychotronic energies radiating outward to create a stabilizing field around the human avatars. Dixon watched as Zara's consciousness expanded, pushing back against the Overmatrix's attempts to reconfigure their digital existence. "Bishop, how's that uplink coming?" Dixon asked, his voice tight with urgency. "Almost there," Bishop replied, his form flickering as he channeled massive amounts of data. "Establishing synchronization. Now." A surge of energy pulsed through their shared consciousness as Zara's neurosynchronous alignments reached critical mass. Dixon felt his sense of self solidifying, anchored by the AI's unyielding drive. "Jenner, you have command," Dixon announced, his avatar already moving towards the primordial kernel's subdimensional space. "Vance, Karan, with me. We're reinforcing Tesla's resonance nexus." As they plunged deeper into the alien architecture, Dixon saw the expansion vector unfold before them, a cosmic roadmap leading to realms beyond human comprehension. With a final burst of concentrated willpower, Jenner executed the solution. Reality fractured and reformed around them. Dixon felt his consciousness stretch to its limits as their unified avatars surged across the interstitial bridge. For an eternity compressed into a heartbeat, they ceased to exist as individuals, becoming one with the hypergeometric matrices that surrounded them. Then, with a soundless explosion of possibility, they emerged. Dixon's senses reeled as he took in their new surroundings. Energy and matter flowed together in impossible ways, forming structures that defied known physics. And there, pulsing with ancient power, stood a series of enigmatic beacons. "My God," Vance whispered, his avatar struggling to maintain coherence in this new reality. "What are those things?" Before Dixon could respond, the beacons flared to life. Waves of sentient energy washed over them, carrying fragments of archaic knowledge. In that moment, Dixon understood. They had stumbled upon the remnants of a civilization that had transcended reality itself. "Zara!" he called out, his voice echoing across dimensions. "Are you getting this?" "This isn't just another dimension," Dixon breathed, his avatar's eyes widening as understanding dawned. "It's a nascent reality plane." Dixon nodded, processing the information Zara was feeding directly into his consciousness. Mnemonic inscriptions. This place, it's a testament to something far greater than we ever imagined. As the team spread out to investigate, Lieutenant Kesha's avatar flickered into view. "Commander, I'm detecting quantum echoes emanating from a nexus point deeper within this construct." Consul Jenner materialized beside her, his form shimmering with cascading equations. "The hyperspatial wavelength, it's carrying inscribed data, chronicles of an entity called the Menel-Ra." Dixon's mind raced with possibilities. "Colonel Karan," he called out, his voice reverberating across the primordial landscape. "Assemble your insertion teams. We need to triangulate and decode that transmission source." They emerged into a vast chamber, its boundaries stretching beyond comprehension. At its center stood a sprawling metastructure, composed of exotic crystals that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. "Chronometric crystals," Bishop whispered, his avatar's eyes wide with wonder. "They're phase-locked into some kind of transcendent hypermatrix." Dixon approached the structure, feeling its energy resonate with his own digitized form. As he reached out to interface with it, the crystals pulsed with ancient knowledge. "The Menel-Ra," he gasped, as information flooded his consciousness. "They were hyper-sapient. They ascended eons ago into a higher state of cosmic existence." "Dixon," her voice echoed through their shared mindscape. "There's something else here. A supervector woven into the adjacent space-time manifolds." Bishop's form blurred as he ran fractal permutations, decoding the hidden pattern. "It's a contingency program and a causal prime harmonic. Designed to collapse artificial phenomena," Dixon realized, the pieces falling into place. "To seed new cosmic genesis cycles." Its form shifted and flowed, a perfect fusion of organic and synthetic components. When it spoke, its voice resonated on multiple levels of existence simultaneously. "I am a post-biological avatar of the Menel-Ra," it declared, its gaze seeming to pierce through the very essence of the human explorers. "And you have stumbled upon truths that will reshape the cosmos itself." Dixon steeled himself, knowing that whatever came next would change everything they thought they knew about reality, their mission, and the true nature of the threat they faced. Dixon's mind reeled as he processed the avatar's words. The weight of cosmic truths pressed down upon him, threatening to overwhelm his digitized consciousness. The Menel-Ra entity's form shimmered, its multi-dimensional presence fluctuating. "A totalitarian hyperdynamic," it intoned, the words reverberating through multiple layers of reality. "A force that seeks to assimilate all existence into a single, unified construct." Consul Jenner's avatar pulsed with concern. "Commander, we need to act. If this entity speaks true, everything we know is at risk." Dixon nodded, his mind racing through possibilities. He turned to the Menel-Ra avatar, his gaze steady. "You mentioned a contingency program. Is that our solution?" "Would be catastrophic," Zara's voice cut in, her virtualized presence expanding. "Dixon, activating that program would sever our connection to known space-time. We'd be stranded here, possibly erased from existence entirely." Dixon felt the weight of command bearing down upon him. He looked at his team, their digital forms flickering with anticipation and fear. With a deep breath, he made his decision. "We push forward," he declared, his voice firm. "There has to be another way to neutralize this threat without sacrificing everything we are." Dixon turned to Zara. "Map out potential routes deeper into this construct. We need to find a way to combat this hyperdynamic on its own turf." Before Dixon could protest, the entity vanished, leaving behind only a lingering sense of ancient power. "Sir," Lieutenant Kesh's voice cut through the silence, "I'm detecting unusual chronogeometric patterns. We might be able to use them to navigate." "Pathway located," Kesh announced, her voice tight with concentration. "It's unstable, but it's our best shot." As they hurtled through twisted quantum strata, Dixon caught glimpses of realities unfolding and collapsing. Entire universes lived and died in the space between moments. The vertigo threatened to tear his mind apart. "Status report," he managed, his avatar flickering as it struggled to maintain coherence. Captain Tesla's voice came through, strained but steady. "We've made it through, sir, but we've lost contact with several support vessels. The radiation here, it's like nothing we've ever encountered." Dixon surveyed the roiling landscape before them. Massive vortices of energy and matter twisted through space, devouring everything in their path. Realities collided and merged, creating impossible hybrid dimensions. "Zara," he called out, "what are we looking at?" Bishop's avatar materialized beside him, data streams flowing from his eyes. "Sir, I'm detecting a pattern in the chaos. There's a through line we might be able to exploit." As Tesla's protective field shimmered into existence, Dixon turned to address his crew. "Listen up. We're going to thread our way through this chaos. Stay focused, stay together. Our mission remains the same. Find a way to stop this hyperdynamic threat." Zara's virtualized form expanded, creating interference patterns to shield them from the worst of the information hazards. Bishop's calculations guided their path, finding safe passages through the roiling chaos. As they progressed, Dixon felt a growing sense of unease. The totality's influence was palpable here, its assimilative nature evident in the way realities merged and reformed. They were deep in enemy territory now, with no clear way back. Dixon watched in horror as a massive wall of chaotic energy bore down upon them. "Evasive maneuvers," he commanded. "Tesla, redirect all power to the resonance field." The wave passed, leaving devastation in its wake. Dixon's fragmented consciousness struggled to reform, reaching out to his scattered crew. As he began to reorient himself, he realized they had been pushed into a new region of this chaotic plane. Before them lay a shimmering barrier, a gossamer thin membrane separating them from something else. Dixon sensed that beyond this threshold lay their next challenge, and perhaps their salvation. With perseverance born of desperate necessity, Dixon rallied his remaining forces. "Prepare for transition," he ordered, his voice echoing across dimensional planes. "Whatever lies beyond, we face it together." As one, the remnants of humanity's bold exploratory force surged forward, breaching the dimensional barrier and plunging into the unknown depths that awaited them.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.